Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Night Racing League YouTube channel. And we're very excited to begin broadcasting the Night Racing League Sports Car Championship. This is the first of two exhibition races we're going to have for you. The goal of these, fill the grid and to test out the rules, make sure we have everything set up for the championship. So it's a very light field today, but we're going to put everything up on the channel for you to watch, and we're glad you're with us. The cars have finished qualifying, and we have a very short field, as we said. Just some of the top Night Racing League members as we get set, trying to set the rules. We'll have 4 LMP2s today. Only 3 GTEs showed up, so that's a little disappointing. We've got a lot more signed up for the series. But with the league just getting underway, some time issues, we're having some troubles there. But we've got a very, very good LMP2 class to start out with here. And we'll run down some of the rules, and we'll get everything set up for you during this broadcast. 2 hours around the Spa-Francorchamps circuit. And we'll be getting going here in just a couple of minutes. It was a great qualifying session. And here's the way they fanned out. It's Nathan Jew on the pole in the LMP2 class with a 2:02.5. Alongside him, Paul Seeley in the Night Racing Dallara. Just the other car, just nipping the 2:02 barrier, a 2:02.999. Keith Rainey and Dean Ellico will round out the LMP2 field. And then we have Kevin Hensel, new to the league, along with Connor Seatle and Leighton Cater, the head of the Night Racing C8R program, and very much responsible for the team's first in GTE at the 6 Hours of Sebring with Hayden Fowler and Jaden Montham-Guerin. So that was a big race. They are not here today. However, they are going to be in this series as well. The Night Racing League Sports Car Championship is an A license championship, and also with a restricted I rating, so it's going to keep the competition close. Night Racing League has always been for the mid-split drivers, serious racers, but mid-split. So there are no aliens, there are no beginners, and if you fall into that category and want to get into some of the best racing you're going to find on iRacing in a private league, contact me or the Night Racing League. You can apply to the Night Racing League in the league section. And the cars are just going to start gridding up now. And we'll get underway for 2 hours at Spa-Francorchamps. And here we are on the grid. It looks a little like some of the Project Cars 2 fields we had 2 years ago when we started the Xbox League. But we've already got many more drivers signed up for the series. This is, of course, the first exhibition race. It's a low incident point racing series, so it's going to take real driving skill, real car management. That's what Night Racing Leagues have always been about, and we get ourselves rolling here. Nathan Jew in the 4, that's Paul Seeley there in the 72. Start-finish line, of course, here at Spa is around La Source as we head down towards Eau Rouge, so the cars in a short pace lap here. as Nathan brings the field through La Source and down to the green flag. A little close for the GTEs, but here we go. And the flag is waved, and we are off and running for the first of 2 exhibition races for the Night Racing League Sports Car Championship. Nathan Ju off to the lead. They're away in qualifying order, actually. Down to Lacombe, and it's a great little lead for Nathan as he pulls away. Just about 0.4 of a second was the gap. As there is Connor Seidel in the second place GTE car, a quick gap, but we're back up to the LMP2s. This should be a very, very close fight. It was 0.4 of a gap from first to second, but although Paul Seeley in second there was a 2:02.999, he had a little bit more of a gap to Rainey and Ellico. They had pace in the practice sessions. We're actually a little quicker than the Canadians, so we'll see what they look like here in race trim. In a 2-hour race, very important to have the long distance strategies down. As Kevin Hensel and Connor Seidel, first and second here in the GTE class. As we said, this series is an A licensed series with I ratings restricted between 1,300 and 3,000. And we are looking for drivers. We're going to have a 50-car field with 18 LMP2s and 32 GTEs, all 5 cars eligible. So sign up at the Night Racing League on iRacing. And we complete lap number 1. Lap times inflated because of the rolling start and the start-finish line being back around, but here is Keith Rainey already looking, and the Canadian on the inside defending a little bit. No passing move there, as it's already a 3-second gap, and that's a larger gap than we were anticipating for Nathan Ju. Pulling away a little quicker than his qualifying pace might have suggested. Maybe it's the pressure from behind, but Seeley losing a little bit of touch here as we're on lap number 2. The GTE's much closer. As there is Hensel and Seidel pulling away a little bit, about 2 seconds back to Leighton Cater in the C8R. But a very tight battle there in the GTE. Back up front with Ju. And there is the battle for second, which looks like it could last for the entire 2 hours the way these two were practicing. The main goals for these guys today: run the 2 hours, make sure the incident limits and everything, the race format works well. We're going to have a much larger field in a fortnight. 2 weeks in Barcelona will be on the historic track without the final chicane. As we get some representative lap times, the first time around it's a 2:03.1, and you can see a 1.5 second pullout on that lap for Nathan Ju, who's disappearing into the distance from the rest of the gap. Ellico has also dropped back a little bit from this battle between 2 of the original longtime Night Racing League members, Paul Seeley and Keith Rainey. Incident points in this series, It's a drive-through penalty at 8x, and then every 6x after that. Very, well, I would say very. I mean, for these guys, that's normal. But you have to drive these things like you're in a real car. This is not an open series. It's not like in the official race where you can have 60 incident points. These guys have to respect track limits. They have to drive properly, get through traffic properly. And that's one of the things they're testing here, and one of the reasons we're on Spa for the first race, because it's very easy to pick up 1Xs here if you're not careful, if you're not driving the way you should in an endurance car, and we'll be seeing how many guys will get drive-through penalties here in this 2-hour run. We, of course, will be racing here in the 4th race of the series. As we look back up front into the bus stop and into the pits after lap 2. Nathan Jew with a very, very early pit stop. And that is going to give the lead to the Canadian Paul Seeley through La Source with Keith Rainey right behind him. So early problems for the pole sitter. And we'll watch and see as we're on board with the new leader through Eau Rouge. Rainey still sitting back. And the long, long endurance pit road here, still not even at the pit box. He's been on pit road for almost a minute as the GTEs come through and pass the pole sitter, who is now finally in the pit box. You can see the pit times on the right. You can also see a driver who joined us in practice but did not make the start. And we are hearing from pit road that the car was presented at the grid with qualifying fuel. So that is an early teething pain there for Nathan Jew, not getting the car filled. He comes back out, and we'll see what that does to his race strategy. The way the fuel mileage on these LMP2s for this race, you're going to get about 18 laps. It's just under a 38-minute stint. So if you were to fill twice, you would have to take about 9 laps on the end of the race. So he's going to have to do some fuel savings here. As we go back on board with the new race leader, and it's a 1-second gap back to second place. There he is, Keith Rainey in the number 6. 4 more seconds back to Dean Ellico as it is tightening up. Ellico pulling back. Now that he's got those tires warmed up, he's actually closing that gap to these front 2. Should be very interesting. We've heard a lot of talk from the drivers' meeting. These guys were all hinting at strategies. Nobody said what they were going to be doing for this 2-hour race. It's definitely a 3-stop race. Perhaps maybe for everyone except the 4 car. He may, after 3 laps coming in, he may need to add one as Rainey now all over the back of the 72. The one thing we were worried about with such a short field on this one was whether or not we'd have a show for people to watch, but it looks like with an early mistake from the pole sitter, it looks like we might have ourselves a really tight race. He's got about a half second, we said, of pace. He's going to have to save some fuel. That might even this out. If we can still get to the end on 3 stops, this is still going to be a tight run thing. We'll watch the lap times on the right side of the screen. As we come around to complete lap number 5. Fantastic sound of that brand new Dallara P217. As Rainey gets his toe all the way down Camel Straight. Looks content to sit back there at the moment. Car's still heavy with fuel. You don't want to over push these tires, depending on what your strategy is. We said it's a 3-stop race for the LMP2 cars. We'll be watching the GTEs. There is Hensel coming around to complete his 5th lap, with now a 2.5 second lead over Connor Siegel. Cater losing touch here. But a long way to go, as we're just over 10 minutes into this 2-hour race. As we look back, there is the night racing livery. That's the new livery of the night racing C8R program. As we said, this car won the 6 hours of Sebring with Hayden Fowler and Jaden Monaghan in the cockpit, but Leighton here did a lot of the setup work. Really kind of the head of the program, and a huge win for them last week at Sebring. As back up front, the gap is imperceptible. It's less than half a second. I got a feeling we're going to be watching a lot of this, and you can see now less than 5 seconds back to Dean Ellico, so he's definitely closing this in. Definitely right in the toe this time. We'll see if Keith wants to have a little lead time here. Maybe saving fuel. It looks like he's got the faster car right now. Maybe a little lift and coast early on will help with the strategy. Maybe he can get a mistake out of the Canadian, who I'm sure was not expecting to be leading here. You can see the lap times. 2:05s by these leading cars. A 2:03.7 by the pole sitter. As he's just now coming through the back of the GTE class. 1:14 behind. And you saw it takes almost a minute to get down through pit road to your stall. And then the service. He took fuel only, obviously. Fresh tires at the start of the race. But we're convinced he's going to have to do some fuel saving as well. So be very interesting to see how this one plays out. As we head back up front, Seeley and Rainey, and you can see that gap from Ellico just dropping down as we head through Blanchimont on lap 7. I'm not going to say not close enough to make a move. I have a feeling Rainey is very, very tactically figuring out when the best time would be here to make a move, or if he's better off just running in behind. Obviously, the shorter you can make that last pit stop, the better. Seems happy to be around the half-second mark. Ellico in the background. Nathan Jew has made it through the other GTE cars. It's a minute 13 back to the pole sitter, who has already made an early pit stop. As we settle in here, we'll tell you a little more about the Night Racing League Sports Car Championship. It's an 8-race series. It's an 8-race series. The Barcelona Historic Race is going to be an exhibition race, so it'll be Silverstone, Le Mans, the Spa Endurance Track again, Interlagos. There'll be a GTE-only Mid-Ohio race, then Sebring, Daytona, and Road America, all 2-hour events. As Rainey is having a look again down into Eau Rouge. Oh, and a little hop over the curbing. It definitely looks like he's making a run here. Seeley to the inside, Rainey to the outside down Kemmel Straight. But an early lift leaves a Canadian out front. There is the schedule and the dates. And as we said, it's an A-license championship. If you're ready for some real racing with mid-split I ratings, 1,300 to 3,000, so it should be competitive racing all the way through the field. The average safety rating of all drivers signed up right now is 3.8, with average I ratings in both classes in the 1900s, although we have drivers from 1350 all the way up to 2800. In fact, the two you're watching now is a 1900 and a 1400, so you can see how competitive that is in this new car. Get that schedule off the screen for you. If you want to be a part of this, it's going to be a 50-car grid. Just apply to the Night Racing League in the league section on iRacing. We'd love to have you. The next race is the 17th of October at the Barcelona Historic Track. As we complete lap number 9, the gap now to third, 3.3 seconds. As the leader's stuck in the 205s, mid-205s, and you can see Ellico at 205 dead there. 204.2 for Nathan Jew as he continues to reel in these front cars. As we go on board with Keith Rainey now, chasing down the Canadian here. Out of Pouan. All races of the championship will be broadcast here on the Night Racing YouTube channel. And we're looking forward to doing that, bringing you all the action. We're going to have a lot more cars in the next races. There's another. Keith looks like he's getting ready to go for it here. On the outside again. Seeley on the inside. And he's definitely going for the corner, and he's done it into Lacombe. We have a new race leader, our third. After 22 minutes of racing, we've had 3 leaders in LMP2. There's the view from the second place car now, Paul Seeley. And you can see, although down on the left side, you might see me occasionally telling the camera to focus on the most exciting and the crashes. You might see it pop up here. That is one thing. We're not going to see a lot of this if you're used to the regular official series. Very precise driving here. These guys, there's no dive bombing. There's no gambling on corners. This is a low incident limit series, and these guys race like they're in real cars. It's the best racing you're going to find, and it's A license. Come and join us. As Seeley looking a little bit racy now, and they've got the GTE of Leighton Cater up there in front of them, getting ready to put him a lap down. GTE's a little spread out. As I said, we have a lot more signed up. It's just the timing of this event with the Petit Le Mans yesterday, it just meant for a short field. A lot of those guys were racing in the 10 hours, and to do a 2-hour enduro the very next day, they decided to take a pass on the exhibition. On board with our race leader as he reels in. We're going to have our first run through traffic here. As Dean Ellico pulls ever closer. No dramas through there, and the leaders continue on lap 12. There's Ellico getting by as well, but you can see the gap now, 3.1 seconds. First to third in the LMP2, the race for the lead. Connor Seidel in the BMW, the second place car in GTE, the next that they'll come across. As the M8 crackles through La Source. And the speed of the leaders has definitely picked up. You can see the pole sitter back there doing 204.1 the last time around. We were in mid-205s with Seeley leading, and we are into the 204.8s with Rainey up front. Seeley has responded a little bit. He's got the toe. Perhaps maybe a little bit of tire or fuel management was going on there. Wasn't a ton of blocking. Seeley took the inside down Kemmel straight. And as this one gets fun, the BMW stays outside, not really able to be extra patient there, but very, very clean as Rainey goes wide, and that'll give Seely a chance to keep that gap. Rainey has looked a little faster than the 72 in the practice sessions and in race trim. So either running maybe a little less downforce, which is helping in the straights, although he looks very, very good in the corners. It's not like he's being overrun from behind. But even though in qualifying trim, the Canadian had about a... As there's Ellico back behind Seidel now coming through. Yeah, so even though it was about a half-second, a little more than a half-second gap from Seely to Rainey in qualifying trim, we knew that Rainey had the race pace, and he's proving it here in the first half hour as he was all over the back of Seely and finally takes the race lead. That is Kevin Hensel up front in the powder blue C8R, the GTE race leader. And these LMP2s should be able to get by very nicely down the Kemmel Straight. Seely will take a little bit of a toe and then pulls out. As we approach the quarter distance mark of this one and our first set of pit stops, the LMP2s will be pitting first. You can generally get, it's about 35 to 38 minutes in an LMP2 car. The GTEs could get up to 45 minutes depending on circuit. They might be a little less than that today here at Spa. But we'll definitely see the LMP2s coming into the pits if they were fully fueled, 75 liters, in the next 10 minutes. The first of 3 stops that we're expecting here today. As we head back, and it's Ellico's turn to get by the race-leading GTE car. Highlighted name at the top right tells you which car we are in, or which the camera is focused on right now. The race leader, the number 6, Keith Rainey, completing lap number 14. And these two have been within 3/4 of a second all race long. In fact, Rainey got a great exit out of La Source, and this is the biggest gap we've had between these two cars since the start of the race. We're a half hour into the first exhibition race for the Night Racing League Sportscar Championship. First of 2 exhibition races before we head out to an 8-race championship. 7 races for the LMP2 cars, 8 races for the GTEs, as there will be a GT-only Mid-Ohio race. A light field today, but we are testing the rules, making sure everything is set for the championship series. The Night Racing League Sportscar Championship, open to all drivers. It's free to enter. The only restrictions, you must have an A license, and we keep the competition close by having this series for mid-split drivers. I ratings from 1,300 to 3,000. And we are running the gambit with the cars that are on the track here today. We've got that range represented perfectly. Apply to the Night Racing League on the iRacing League section. We'd love to have you on the grid, planning for 50 cars when we hit Silverstone for the first points championship race. There is the schedule. Original Barcelona was going to be the first championship race, but we decided to make that an exhibition as well, as we have a lot of new drivers signing up this week. So on Halloween, Saturday will be the first race, 1600 UTC. All races on Saturday at 1600 UTC. That's noon in the Eastern time zone in North America, 5 p.m. in England, and you can do your own math for your own time zone. Your race leader, the number 6 of Keith Rainey, who overtook Paul Seeley about 7 laps ago. Our pole sitter, Nathan Jew, is reeling them in. Although you see the lap times have stabilized, another 2:04.1. He's basically maintaining his lap times. It's the leaders who are speeding up as the fuel loads come down. And we've got a 1 second gap, the largest gap we've had between these two since the race began, with either of them leading. And they'll complete lap number 16. We're expecting pit stops either at the end of this or the next lap, depending on the fuel mileage they've been getting. We guessed that Keith was doing a little bit of lifting and coasting while he was following the 72 for so long. And possibly the explanation of those lap times, perhaps Seeley up front was doing the same thing to try and stretch another lap and minimize that final pit stop. It'll be a 3 pit stop race today for the LMP2s. And you can see Dean Ellico has dropped back 8 seconds now, as he had that gap down to 3 earlier, but as they came through the GTEs, he has dropped back. It'll be very interesting to see. Nathan Jew's definitely been closing the gap overall since he made that early pit stop. So as the top 3 come in, he's going to regain the lead. But remember, it was only 3 laps. So if they come in at the end of 17 here, he'll probably have to come in at the end of 20 or 21, depending if he's been able to save any fuel. And that's going to be important because after 3 laps, he may still need 3 pit stops. And that would be a killer with this long pit road here on the endurance circuit at Spa. He's going to have to do some fuel savings if he wants any chance of being back on the same rotation as the other 3 cars. Through Blanchimont down to the bus stop, and we'll see if we get our first round of LMP2 pit stops here. No, and they're both going around again, so some good fuel mileage here from the top 2. And Ellico in behind will also go around again. 18 laps on the first stint. That's pretty good for these guys, and that's going to make that final stop very short. Ellico is definitely on it now, a 2:04.8 as opposed to a 2:05.2. Trying to pull that gap out as they head to pit road, probably at the end of this lap. We check in with our race in the GTEs. You can see it's a 9-second gap. This is Kevin Hensel, your leader in the powder blue C8R. Behind him, Connor Seidel in the M8 BMW. And there is Leighton Cater just getting caught now by the 4th place LMP2. As up front, the gap is stretching to 2 seconds. A fantastic in-lap from the American in the number 6. And the pit crews are ready. And into the pits they come. Both cars, and I expect we'll see Ellico as well. Yes, he does come in from behind, so it's the long run down pit road. You'll see in the top right, it takes almost a minute at pit road speed, 62 kilometers an hour, to get down to your pit box at the far end of the endurance pits. This should give the lead back to the number 4 car, Nathan Jew, your pole sitter. But he pitted at the end of lap 3. So he should be 3 or 4 laps, depending on if he was able to save any fuel to get to come back in. He's really off sequence with these top 3 cars. They finally make it down to pit road. Seeley qualified 2nd. He's in front, and you can see the pit times on the top right as Ellico also makes it into his pit box. Here comes Nathan Jew. He's in behind the Connor Seidel BMW and will take the lead. And Seeley away first, a very short pit stop, 19.8 seconds as the other two. Finally, Rainey is away, 30.4. He stopped for 10 more seconds. So that's going to be a short fill, it looks like, for the Canadian. Meanwhile, up front, Nathan Jew, your pole sitter, back in the lead. So Ellico finally out of the pits, and you can see the red box up there. Seeley with the quickest pit road time, 1 minute 22 seconds. Ellico with the longest, 1 minute 54, as he was stopped for 52.8 seconds. Obviously some tires put on that number 2 car. We're watching Keith Rainey, who is now 3rd, getting by the C8R of Leighton Cater. We'll be expecting GTE pit stops probably within the next 5 minutes. And completing lap number 19, Nathan Jew back in the lead. A 2:04.5. He's been very consistent. There you see Seeley in the background, 8.6 seconds behind. And the race strategies start to play out here as we've now got the first stint done. Jew off the rotation of everybody else, of course, pitted after lap 3. They had qualifying fuel in the car on the grid. so he had to make an early stop. He's in fuel-saving mode, I'm sure. Seely, Rainey, and Ellico, all with full tanks, have all pitted together, but it is Seely in second place with a 10-second shorter fuel fill. Actually, we have 3 different strategies there, don't we? He had the short fill, no tires. Rainey with the full fill and no tires. Ellico with the full fill and new tires. So we can see all 3 strategies play out. That means Seely's going to have a longer final stop if the other guys take full fills on their second stop. But he has track position now against a car that has been consistently faster than him for this entire race. Rainey 10 seconds, almost 11 seconds behind when he came out of the pits after that first stop. So we'll be very interested to see the relative performance. Of course, Seely will have lighter fuel. They're both running on old tires, so we'll be very interested to see those lap times as they start to come around here. Seely gets by the class-leading GTE car. That's Kevin Hensel in the 94. Here is Rainey now coming by Seidel. And we start to see the lap times now. It's a 2:03.9 as Nathan Jew has picked it up. A 2:05.2 for Seely, and Rainey comes around with a 2:05.7. He was just passing one of the GTE cars there that may have influenced that. But putting that aside, it's a a little over 0.4 of a second quicker for the lighter fueled 72 car. So we'll watch those gaps as this stint progresses. Seely will clearly have to pit earlier than Rainey and Ellico. The overall strategy is basically, it's 3 stops no matter how you look at it. You can take 2 full fuel stops, and then the third stop will be somewhere in the 7 to 10 lap range, depending on your mileage. Seely obviously decided to go with a longer fill on the last stop, or the next stop. Maybe he's averaging them out. We'll see what happens here. Back up front with your leader, who is also going to have to pit here soon. We're thinking in the next 2 laps. We'll see how much fuel he saved. The other 3 cars all came in after lap 18. He's going to be completing lap 21, and if he's saving fuel, he's got to go around at least one more time. If he can get, I'm not even sure a lap a stint will get him back on target. So we'll see how much fuel he's saving by when the number 4 car makes it back to pit road. And he's in after lap 21. So that is only an 8-lap stint. And that is not going to be enough to get him to the end. He may still have to do 2 more stops after this. We'll see. As he will give up to the lead. The 72 already passed and back into the lead. There comes Keith Rainey. So back into the lead, but it's an 11-second gap for the 72 of Paul Seely. Trying an alternate strategy here. The 4 car has made it to pit road. As Dean Ellico goes by and retakes 3rd place. And he's off and rolling, 31.8. It's fuel only for the 4 car. And you can see that's a full fill. So still on the tires he started this race on. We'll see if he's planning. This will be 2 full stints plus 3 laps he'll have on these tires. Again, we have 4 cars in the LMP2 class, and we have 4 different pit strategies going here. And after 45 minutes, 3 of the 4 cars have all led this race. Back up front, you can see the lap times, another 1/10 of a second. Seeley pulls away, the gap now 11.1. Relatively stable, we've seen it between 11 and 10 seconds since the pit stop's finished. It's another 30 seconds back to Ellico, who took tires on his first stop. He's doing 2:05.0, so another 1/10 slower. He's got the new rubber, so we would expect to see some better lap times here from Ellico. We'll watch that as he gets things warmed up as we head back to Rainey. You see the colors changing on the pit road times there. They turn to red when everyone else is faster than you, or you are slower than them. It depends on which name is highlighted. So right now we're on Dean Ellico, and you can see all the pit stops were quicker than his because he took tires, so they all turn red. As he gets by the BMW of Seidel, running in second. Still haven't seen any GTE pit stops. So my information on how long their stints are going to be was obviously inaccurate, but we'll watch the counter up there to see when they come in, and we'll cover those. Mid 2:05s for our leaders, another 1/2 a 1/10 for Seeley as he tries to extend that gap. This is a big lap for Ellico. He's got to start making up some ground here and using that rubber. And it was a 2:05.4. So that is the quickest lap of the top 3. Nathan Jew in 4th. A 2:05.3 is the quickest lap of the LMP2 cars. Still a minute 10 back, and we're convinced he's got to save some fuel as he only got 18 laps on that stint, which matched all of the front 3. He may be a little handcuffed here from that early pit stop when they got the car to the grid with qualifying fuel. Little bit of a wiggle from the back end of the 72 as Seeley comes around to complete lap number 24. And a 2:04.9 as he's starting to put the pace up. with that lighter fuel load. As I say that, a 2:04.6 behind him by Keith Rainey. Never mind the lighter fuel load, says Keith. He's all over it, and here comes Ellico. And it's a 2:05.7. So the pace starting to drop off from the number 2 car. He's got the GTE leader, Kevin Hensel, in front of him as he'll pass him on the way down to Eau Rouge. I'm just remembering here that we were talking to Leighton Cater earlier in the, there he is there, earlier in the week, and he was actually toying with a one-stop strategy. Hard to believe you could get that kind of fuel mileage, but it might explain the lap times, as he's been almost a second off the pace here. And if he's trying to fuel save in this exhibition race and see if he can actually do a 2-hour race on a one-stop strategy, that's going to be very interesting to watch this play out. It's only 30 seconds up to the leader. And of course, we know it takes a minute just to get down pit road, and then you have to have your service on top of that. Rainey pulling another 10th in that last lap, 2:04.8 to 2:04.9. But a short fill has given 10 seconds of track position here. We'll see how that plays out on the next pit stops. You're watching the Night Racing League Sportscar Championship. This is the first of 2 exhibition races we'll be having to set the grid and finalize the rules for this A-license, low incident limit sports car championship. It's designed for mid-split drivers. I ratings between 1,300 and 3,000. It's going to be a 50-car grid, 18 LMP2s and 32 GTEs. If you want to race in this series, there are grid slots open. Apply to the Night Racing League in the iRacing League section. And you're watching who is going to be one of the front runners in this LMP2 championship. Nathan Jew, pole sitter with a 2:02.5. A little bit of opening night jitters has put him back in 4th. But he's going to be a driver to watch through the entire series. And it's a bit of a shame he's a minute back from our race leaders. And there is your race leader, the 72 of Paul Seeley in the Night Racing Esports colors. Ahead on strategy right now, and we'll see how that plays out. A short first stop for fuel only. You can see the pit box times in the right top hand corner. A 19.8 fuel fill for the 72. Full fuel for Keith Rainey, 30.4 seconds. Dean Alico in third, 52.8 seconds stopped as he took full fuel and tires. So the top three all with three different strategies going here. Nathan Jew, the fourth car, forced into a fourth strategy with a lap 3 pit stop. He has now stopped twice for full fuel and has not changed tires. He's still on the original tires and doing 2:05.6s, starting to drop back from the top three lap time wise, but that could be the tires starting to complain. It's the length of the main straight from Seeley to Rainey. As you can see, he's now got it down to 10 seconds, and a nice grab there, 0.6 of a second, a 2:04.7 compared to a 2:05.3. So the light fuel load not translating into lap times for Seeley. And speaking of pit stops, as we were mentioning earlier, the GTE race, which has been a rather spread out here. Of course, only 3 cars for the exhibition race as we test the rules. But an interesting thought to keep in the back of your mind, as here comes the first pit stop. Kevin Hensel into the pits. This is the first GTE pit stop. And we will now see as Connor Seidel is coming around. So he's going to take the lead. And this is what we were talking about. Leighton Cater earlier in the week hinting that he might try to do this as a one-stop race. So it'll be very interesting to see where these GTE cars pit. As we're just now coming to the halfway mark. So it looks like a one-stop is definitely possible. Hensel won't be out until well past the 1 hour remaining mark. As Hensel gets to his pits, that was the sister C8R going by there in the, as you heard. And we'll see what the strategies are here for the GTEs. If they're going to take tires or do this race on one set. Should be just about done with the fuel. And he does take tires, so it's a full service for Kevin Hensel. There is your new GTE leader, and we'll see when they're coming into the pits as we are now past the halfway mark of this race. Quick lap that time around for Alico in the LMP2s, a 2:04.6 as he starts to try to reel in the top two whose older tires might be starting to complain a little bit. Hensel is out of the pits. A total service time of 1 minute 2 seconds and 2:03 on pit road. So we'll see how that compares to the other GTE cars. And Seidel has hit pit road. We'll cut to that as he gets stopped. A 2:05.3 for Nathan Jew. So he is still... Well, no, he's not. Keith Rainey is a 2:04.9. So he is the quickest LMP2 on old tires as the 72, the race leader, into the pits as he completes lap 29. So that's the short fill. And we'll see what happens there. As it's busy on pit road, Seidel has made the turn down into the endurance pits. So we have both race leaders in. Keith Rainey will regain the lead in the number 6. We expect fuel and tires for the M8. There goes the race leader. So 18, we expect him around lap 36. Seeley in after lap 29 as he comes down pit road. And there goes Seidel, no tires for the M8. He's going to do this race on one set. That's what we wanted to see, and that will give him track position over Kevin Hensel, who did a full service. And we'll wait for the gaps on screen to update. It's now Leighton Cater in the lead, yet to pit. So he was clearly saving fuel, going for a short fill at the end. As the GTE race, which was a little pedestrian for the first hour, may be getting ready to hot up here. Seeley getting tires on his second stop. So he's timed that short fill to get him to the halfway mark. A little past, car is now off the jacks. So fresh boots and a full fill, 56.3 stopped. And that will mean another short fill probably for the 72 when he comes around. Just about 20 minutes to go. Leighton Cater in the pits. So here is your new LMP2 race leader, Keith Rainey, back up front. We're expecting... I imagine he's going to take tires here. We can see the lap times of Nathan Jew at 2:13. What happened there? A definite issue which we missed during the pit stop sequence. But that lap time... well off of his averages. There's clearly an issue for the 4-car the last time around. Cater has made it to his pit stall. And we'll see if the Corvette does a full service here or if he's going to try to go on one set of tires as Connor Seidel has. As you can see, it's... thought I saw a 1 second gap. No, that was to the LMP2 car of Seeley, who has just passed him. So Cater also getting tires in the Corvette. So there's your answer. It is your GTE race leader, Connor Seidel, the only one of the GTE field to go on the same set of rubber. It's given him a 15.4 second lead, and we'll watch that gap to see if that strategy plays out. It's a long stop for Leighton. 118 stopped, and 222 in the pit, so that was not a good stop. see if we can get an explanation for that. But as he comes out just in front of the 4 car, something not right with that stop. You can see how off the pace it was. So your race leader here, we're expecting him back to the pits in 5 laps. But it's Keith Rainey with a 32-second lead over Dean Ellico. Those cars have only stopped once. Nathan Ju, your pole sitter, in 3rd place now. He has stopped twice, as has Paul Seeley in behind. And we're going to expect him around the lap 39 mark if he's still getting 18 laps. Hopefully for his sake, it's going to be around lap 40 or 41 if he's been able to save any fuel at all. We think he's going to have to get a couple of laps of fuel saving if he wants to do this race on 3 stops. And just looking back, a 2:06.2 that time around for the 4 car. So he has definitely lost the pace here. We know he's on the original tires he started this race on. Well, as is Keith Rainey here. Ellico took tires on his first stop. Seeley just took tires, so he's on fresh rubber. And a 2:04.4 for the Canadian. That is a quick lap. And that's the quickest lap we've seen Seeley do all race. So those fresh tires clearly making a difference here. Meanwhile, the GTE gap, there is the race leader. You just got a glimpse of him there, Connor Seidel. It's down to 14 seconds. So Hensel definitely pulling him in. He's got 51 minutes to catch the BMW, who is just now going to be passed here by Nathan Ju. Such a short field here in this exhibition race, but we're seeing a ton of different strategies, which is making it, well, frankly, more than I hoped for, to be honest. Good stuff by all these guys. .205.9 as the 4 car gets back on pace. Some kind of issue 3 laps ago, and unfortunately it happened during all the pit stops, and we had our cameras focused on everything that was happening in there. We kind of missed why he did a 2:16. Speaking of 2:16s, that was the lap time of your GTE race leader last time around, and you can see 1.2 seconds quicker. The C8R of Kevin Hensel. Leighton Cater has not had an updated lap time since his pit stop, so we'll wait and see what his pace is. Believe we're 3 to 4 laps away, 3 laps away from pit stops here for these LMP2 leaders, Rainey and Ellico. And then probably another 3 to 4 laps for the 4 car of Nathan to come in. Paul Seeley, who has led a lot of this race, now finds himself in 4th out of 4 cars in the LMP2s. And being very careful there to get by the Corvette. He's playing a long 2-hour alternate strategy to everybody here, and you can see how careful to make sure he doesn't mess that up with an ill-timed pass. One of the things you can expect and enjoy if you race in this series, drivers who know what they're doing in traffic. Come and join us in this A-license mid-split endurance series. 90-minute and 2-hour races, and we've got grid slots available in both classes. Apply to the Night Racing League on iRacing. Keith Rainey starting to push a little bit, a 2:04.7 the last time around. That car very light on fuel. A 2:04.1. He is really trying to finish this stint strong. He needs to gain as much time. Seeley, of course, pulled an 11-second gap with his short fill. However, he long filled the last one. Depending on what Rainey does here, if he goes for a full fill or if he's trying to go half and half. Well, sorry, no, this would be his... Yeah, well, I'll go back to my first thing because he needs 2 more stops, doesn't he? He'll be just short if he fulfills, or he could go half and half and try to do a short fill like Seeley did. Here comes Ellico past Leighton Cater. We were talking about his lap times. It's 2:15.6, so he's the quickest of the GTEs at the moment. Unfortunately, that long pit stop cost him 20 seconds. So that really has him in a bit of an insurmountable gap back there. Really not sure what happened there, why that car was stationary for so long in pit lane, but we look back at the 4th place car coming up to the class-leading GTE. That gap not coming down the way Hensel would like. 13 seconds now. Seidel was actually quicker the last time around. Hensel pulls that back, though, this time with a 15.1, a 16.1 for Seidel. Just expecting the the LMP2s to come in here. 18 laps on their first stint. Of course, no pace lap, but it was a very short pace lap we had here. So we're either expecting them here at the end of lap 36. There is the race leader. At the end of this lap, or for sure the next one. And we'll see how long they're stationary if he takes a full fill. I expect there's going to be tires involved here too for Rainey. And his main rival here in this race, Seeley, 1 minute and 40 seconds behind. So a minute down pit road, 31 seconds for fuel. If he takes tires, that's another 28. So it looks like Seeley might have him covered here if Rainey does a full stop. If he does a partial fuel and tires, they may come out together. It's 2 stops either way, as these guys can only go about 37 minutes on a fuel tank, and he's going to be coming in with about 42 minutes left in the race. Ellico's in the pits. So he took tires on his first stop. We'll see what he does on his second stop. That's a lap earlier for Dean. You can see Rainey has gone around. He'll be completing lap 36 this time by. And he is also headed to pit road. Tires again. So it's fuel and tires on both stops for Dean Ellico. And Kevin Hensel is in the pits. And this is a drive-through penalty. So the first car we've had who has hit the 8 incident points. Well, that shows you we haven't even considered that. We're an hour and 15 minutes into this, and nobody had hit the 8x mark. So that is one of the things of this series. Track limits are strictly enforced, and driver etiquette and passing. So a drive-through for the 94. Meanwhile, back in pit road, there was your race, well, still your race leader. And we'll watch that fuel fill. 31 seconds would be a full fill, and that'll mean a splash and dash at the end of the race. And we're assuming he's going to take tires on this stop as well. Yes, the car goes up on the jacks. And this is going to give Nathan Jew the lead back. We assume he's 4 laps away from a pit stop. I don't know if he can make it. It has to be his last stop if he wants any chance of winning this race. It's going to be close. 4 laps, 2 minutes a lap, 8 minutes. I think he'll be able to do it. I think he's going to be able to do this. He's still out there on his original tires. You can see a 207.0 the last time around, so obviously struggling on those tires. And there is Keith Rainey, and I believe we just saw the 72 out in front, so that's the new gap. Full fuel and tires, so he's going for the splash and go at the end. And it's a 7-second gap up to the Canadian. Just doing some quick calculations here. I think it's going to be around lap 48 when Seeley stops. It'll be a short fill, but it's going to be a lot more than Rainey needs. So this is going to be very, very tight for, well, what could be for the race win. We'll see what happens when Nathan Jew has to come in for a pit stop, but he's not far enough ahead. He's going to need full fuel. And I don't think his gap is big enough for him to stay out in front of these guys. 19 seconds back to Seeley, who is now in second place. Boy, they've been jumping around. And he's going to be coming in probably in the next 2 laps. 3, hopefully, for him to make that fuel fill as short as possible. Great stuff here. I mean, just a light field exhibition race, and boy, we've had strategies all over the place. It's actually been an incredibly interesting race. Those lap times in the 206s, we keep talking about the tires. I think it may have a lot to do with saving fuel. He's got to get to 30. Well, we could go 2 minutes past 0, couldn't we? So he's really got to get to 36, 35 minutes left in this race if he wants to make it to the end safely. You figure he's got to take tires. Those tires have got to be just terrible at this point. I don't see how he can keep the lead, but we'll see what happens. Your race leader in GTE is Connor Seidel. There he is in the BMW. He has a 58-second lead over the 94 of Kevin Hensel, who now is only 10 seconds ahead of Leighton Cater, who you see in the background there. Kevin, the only driver so far to have had a pass-through penalty for incident points. This is a low incident point series. But a fantastic race. He's currently the quickest driver in the GTE. And he's got a 10-second gap on the 199 of Leighton Cater. How big is that 20 seconds in pit road now? Instead of 10 seconds up the road, he's now 10 seconds down the road from second place. And this is Dean Ellico, Captain Fresh Boots. He's taken tires on each pit stop, as we have 4 LMP2s in the exhibition race here, and we've seen 4 different pit strategies. I can't wait for Captain Fresh Boots to blow up on the Discord tomorrow. Back up front, and well, there's 36.5 minutes left in this race, so I think even if Nathan pits this lap, he's going to be able to make it to the end. The big question is, where will he come out after the stop? He's still on the original tires he started this race on. As he goes by the 199, and he's going around again. He's 14 seconds up the road from Paul Seeley, who is maintaining that gap. It's now 8 seconds over Keith Rainey. As the strategies ebb and flow, Seeley is now again on lighter fuel. Rainey has the fresher tires. Seeley has just come over the line with a 2:05.0 and a 2:03.8 for Keith Rainey. So he is on it. Both those cars have to make a short pit stop to finish this race. Rainey's will be a splash and go, probably with about 10 minutes remaining. Seeley is about 10 to 12 minutes up the road from him, so he'll be coming in with about 20 minutes left. And if I remember correctly, Ellico stopped a lap before Rainey, so he's going to have to stop as well in that splash and go range. Of course, anytime after about a half an hour left, they could come in and fill up with the remaining fuel, but you want to keep your car light if you can. Still watching that gap in GTE, but you can see it was a 2-second pull away from Hensel on Cater, so that gap widening from second to third. We're watching the race leader, Nathan Jew, in the number 4 LMP2 Dallara. As he heads to the bus stop, and will he make his final stop here? Here he comes. So 12 seconds up the road is the 72. So the Canadian will be back in the lead. With 33 minutes left in the race, Nathan can clearly make it to the end. He saved enough fuel. That was his first big one. The next big question, yeah, he's got to be taking tires. We'll get over to the pit box when he gets there. Seeley in the lead. Here comes Ellico. You can see passing G in the pit road. Rainey through Eau Rouge. 6 seconds behind Seeley. He pulls another 1.1 seconds on the Canadian that lap. And just now getting down to the box. It'll be a full fuel. We'll get back there. As you can see, the pits time has started. Rainey getting closer, it seems, by the corner. 6-second gap. Ellico crosses the line with a 2:05.2. He's going to retake third place. And we'll watch the American here as the fuel is in. And he's away. He's doing this entire 2-hour race on the same tires. Everybody else has to stop for a splash and go. Series is going to have to be a longer one. And we'll see if Keith Rainey's strategy is going to put him ahead once those pit stops cycle through. There is Rainey, who loses a little bit of time getting past the Corvette. Let's see what his lap time is here. Seeley crosses the line with a 2:05 dead. And a 2:05.8, so a little bit of track position loss there for Rainey, as the gap is now up close to 7 seconds. And here is Nathan Jew, the only car on circuit who can get to the end of the race. He's 1 minute and 11 seconds behind the race leader. We know it takes a minute to go down pit road, and they've got to take fuel, so... Here is your race leader. None of these guys in LMP have really put a foot wrong. We haven't seen any cars off track in either class. As we cross the 1 hour, 30-minute mark. We'll get our plug in here as things have settled down. We're expecting the pit stops in the next 10 minutes. But you're watching the Night Racing League exhibition race from Spa-Francorchamps, the first of 2 exhibition races for this A-license sports car series on iRacing. A-license, iRatings 1,300 to 3,000, as this is for mid-split drivers. An A license because it's not for beginners. No aliens, no beginners. It's for average drivers who want to do some real racing with some competitive competition. These exhibition races are to finalize the rules, finalize the incident points, low incident point racing for those drivers able to maintain track limits and drive like real drivers. It's been a fantastic race. We've only had one car hit the 8X incident for a drive-through, The rules in this series, 8x for a drive-through, and then every 6x after that. The leader of this race, actually we have 2 drivers with 0x an hour and a half into this race. Definitely that will probably change a little bit with higher grid counts, but it shows you the quality out there. Here's your race leader. Now a 6.5 second gap is Rainey trying to pull him back in. He got 4/10 on that last lap. As we await the final pit stops for all these cars, the GTEs can make it to the end. All 3 cars have done this race on 1 stop. The LMPs, it's a 3-stop race. And we're expecting it's going to be about 8 minutes until we see the 72 in. He's run the alternate strategy with a short fill on the first pit stop, which means he's going to have to do about an equal fuel fill on this stop. Rainey, Ellico have done full fuel stops, both of their previous stops, so they're going to have splash and dashes with about 10 minutes to go here. We'll see how that plays itself out. Just watching that gap back to Nathan Jew. He's doing 2:06.5s. We know he's good to go to the end on fuel. He's got out of the pits with about 35 minutes left, so those old tires clearly starting to weigh on him. He's going to go the entire race on the same set of tires after his race strategy was compromised when they accidentally put the car on the grid with qualifying fuel instead of race fuel. He had to pit after lap 3 and has been trying to save it ever since. He saved enough fuel to get to the end of the race and has tried to save another 30 seconds of track position by not changing the tires. It may be starting to catch up with him here. As the leader coming by, it's a 2:04.7. You can see Rainey in the background. We're told a little bit of fuel saving going on in that 72 as well. Although he's 0.3 quicker there than Rainey. Trying to make that last stop as short as possible. Here's Dean Ellico in 3rd place. It's another 35 seconds up the road. Turning pretty similar lap times as he come by the line now. A 2:04.8, so he's turning leader's pace. .23 minutes left. We'll see when the 72 comes to pit road. There's clearly enough room in the fuel cells for all of these guys to make their final pit stop. When will they come down pit road? A little quicker that time around, a 2:04.6. Pulls another 7/10, almost 3/4 of a second that lap. Is Seeley now pushing to try and open that gap? He's extended it to 7.4 seconds. He knows he's going to be stopped in pit lane longer than Rainey and Ellico, so trying to get any track position he can here. Can't wait for the next race in 2 weeks, 17th of October. We've had a bunch of new drivers sign up. We should have a very good GTE field for that race. The LMP2 field is filling out. If you want to be on the grid for this fantastic series, apply to the Night Racing League on iRacing. Just go to the league section, type in Night in the search field, and that should come right up. A-license mid-split sports car endurance championships. We do 90-minute and 2-hour races. There's the schedule. The Barcelona race will not be race 1. That will be an exhibition race, just like this one, to get a larger grid acclimatized. And then the championship will start at Silverstone. And note the special GTE only race at Mid-Ohio. Seeley around to complete lap 46. And he's down to a 2:04.2. Trying to extend that gap. It's a 2:05.9 for Rainey. The gap now over 9 seconds. You can put a lot of fuel in these cars in 9 seconds. Has Seeley done enough to keep himself in the lead? And where will Nathan Jew show up when that all comes through? He has done his final stop. But of course, running on old tires, he turned a 2:05.932, so the same lap time as Rainey that time around. Our two race leaders on screen at the same time. Paul Seeley in the LMP2 and Connor Seidel, your race leader in the BMW M8 in the GTE class. It's been a fantastic run by these guys as well. Completing lap 47, we thought it'd be between either 47 or 48 when Seeley comes in, and we'll see as he comes up to Blanchiment. And here he comes to pit road, the first of the final 3 stops for the race, down to 62 kilometers an hour, and the long, long run to the pit box. This will give Keith Rainey the lead, and we'll see if it's permanently or temporary. He has a splash and go to make in about 10 minutes. 19 minutes remaining in the race. He's made the turn and heads down to the pit box. You can see how long it takes. 50 seconds and he's still not at the pit box. And here he is stopped. Dean Ellico goes by, temporarily retakes second place. .8 seconds stopped in pit road. And the Canadian is good to go to the end of the race. Keith Rainey now leads, and we'll see when he comes in for his final splash and go. Here's Nathan Jew, and that was the other big question. He has come out behind the Canadian, already into Lacombe up the top of the hill. And it is an 11-second gap from Paul Seeley to Nathan Jew as everybody cycles through to get to the finish of the race. Where will Keith Rainey fall into this order? As after 1 hour and 40 minutes, it looks like the top three will be within 10 seconds of each other. Rainey goes through for another lap, completes lap number 48. Less than 17 minutes remaining. And another 2:05.9 that time around, a 2:04.5 for Dean Ellico in behind, although it's 33 seconds up to the race leader. He also needs to have a splash and go at the end here. Seeley goes to the outside of Kevin Hensel, the second place GTE car. There is Nathan Jew in the background just coming out of the bus stop. You can see the gap visually. 10 seconds. A 2:05.1 compared to a 2:04.0. So Nathan, even on those old tires, putting in a very competitive lap. He was the pole sitter for this race. And we hear a little fuel saving might be going on. They're not sure they got enough in that 72 car. So we'll watch the lap times there. Meanwhile, back up front, Keith Rainey will complete lap 49 as he comes around. And he's into the pits. So we get to find out now for the final 15 minutes of this race. The slow, long drive through the Grand Prix pits. They make the corner and then have to go down the endurance pits to the very end. And I'm just thinking, yes, coming out of the bus stop is Dean Ellico to complete lap 49. And he's going to take the race lead. So that means all four drivers in the LMP2 race will have led this race. There is Rainey as he goes past. Dean Ellico takes the lead with 14 minutes remaining here at Spa. Albeit with a splash and go to go. He probably will be coming in this lap. And the splash and go is done. It's a 14.9 second stop as opposed to a 16.8 for Seeley. And where does he come out? Here comes Nathan Jew out of the pits. So second and third right together, and he's not up to speed yet. And the 4 car will easily overtake the 6 down the Kemmel Straight. Keith Rainey comes out in 3rd place. But we know he's got tires that are more than an hour fresher than Nathan Jew's. He changed his after his second pit stop with 45 minutes remaining in the race. Nathan has been on these tires for the entire race. So we'll see how this battle goes out. Meanwhile, Ellico leads by 21. It is 9 seconds up the road from this battle to the leader once Ellico stops. And pushing wide there is Nathan. We saw how patient Rady was at the beginning of this race as he sat behind Seeley for the first 20 minutes before making his move. He's got 12 minutes here. We'll see what happens. A little brake lock up there, and that's going to open up the gap. Ellico stays out. It's a 2:04.6 for Jew and a 2:04.9 for Rainey, who locks up again. He's got the fresher tires, but he doesn't seem to have the grip. Oh, and that gap now is 3 seconds. Time to settle down and pull this one back in. He's certainly got the time, 11 minutes left to go. We head to the 10-minute mark. And Dean Ellico has gone around again. He hasn't been saving fuel all this time, has he? No, there's no way he can do this race on 2 stops. Less than 10 minutes to go. He has a 21-second lead. He did a 2:04.8 that time around, so I doubt very much he's saving fuel. On board with the race leader. As Jew and Rainey come around again, and it's another 9/10 of a second that Rainey falls back. It's a full 3-second gap from 3rd to 4th. This is your race leader, Dean Ellico. The only car we believe on circuit who needs to make his final stop. It'll be a short fill, but the penalty is not the fill. It's the driving down pit road, which is 1 minute. And you can see it's a 35-second gap to 3rd to 4th place. The top 3 should all go by. As we've had 4 different pit strategies, one not by choice, we have to say. But it looks like with a 10-second lead now, that 72 of Paul Seeley is looking good for this victory. 8 minutes to go. We're watching the race leader. Will he come in here at the end of lap 52? There he is, into the pit entrance. A very careful entry into the pit road, and he will get his final splash to make it to the end of this race. As into La Source goes Paul Seeley, and he will retake the lead as he passes Ellico, is in pit lane. Down to Eau Rouge on lap 53. And what has turned out to be a fascinating exhibition race despite the field size here. He comes up on the GTE class leader. That's Connor Seidel in the BMW, who has a 43-second lead over Kevin Hensel, who of course had to do that pass-through penalty. That's really the determining factor right now here in the GTE class. Seeley now an 8-second lead. He did a 2:04.8 as opposed to Nathan Juice 2:04.3. Rainey keeping up, but it's a 2:04.4 for him. And still a 3-second gap from second to third. Ellico back on circuit, 36 seconds behind the race leader. And a 2:05.9 that time around. You see both of the LMP2s chasing. Maybe still a little bit of fuel saving up there. Going to use some of that gap just to make sure he gets to the end. That final stop was timed right down to the leader, and we're told he actually took 1 liter less than they were going to originally. I wonder if they're regretting that. There's Nathan in the background. 7.8 seconds the gap. 5 minutes left in this 2-hour race at Spa. We'll check the lap times as they come back around. See how much more of that 7 seconds he's willing to play with. And it's a 2:04.8 as the pace picks back up. And with 3 minutes on the clock, we should have about 2 laps to go. Zhu can only pick up 0.3 of a second on that lap and still pulls away from Rainey. A 7-second gap down the Kemmel Straight. It should be enough. It's been a fascinating race in this LMP2 class with every single car having a different pit strategy. And after 2 hours, only 11 seconds, less than 11 seconds, separate the top 3. Hope you've enjoyed the race. This is, of course, the first of 2 exhibition races for the Night Racing League Sports Car Championship. Plenty of grid slots available if you want to be a part of this. You need to have an A license, and it's a mid-split championship for I ratings between 1,300 and 3,000. And you can see the quality of driving. It's a low incident limit championship. We'd love to have you on the grid. Search the Night Racing League in the iRacing League section and apply today. The next race, the 17th of October at the Barcelona Historic Track, the GP circuit without the new chicane at the back. It's an exhibition race before we start the points championship on Halloween. All races Saturdays, 1600 UTC. That's noon in North America on the East Coast. As Seeley starts the final lap here at Spa. The gap down to 6 seconds, but he's managing it here. The white flag waves. You saw the flagman there on the side of the course. Fuel better not be an issue now as we head around. You see Zhu got an extra 1.3 seconds out of him, but Seeley just managing the gap now as this is the final circuit. And Kevin Hensel in the pits, we're just noticing in the GTE. Has he maybe run out of fuel here? Is that going to give Leighton Cater 3rd place? The GTEs were very, very close. They've all done this race on one stop. Here's Elico getting by the race leader in GTE. But up front, it's the 72 of Paul Seeley winning the first race of the Night Racing League Sports Car Championship in the LMP2 class. Nathan Zhu behind him will come in second, and all on the front straightaway, the front 3. That is Keith Rainey in 3rd place. Leighton Cater does take 2nd place as Kevin Hensel still in the pits getting some fuel. Here is Dean Elico, who will finish in 4th place. A fantastic race here as the Night Racing League Sports Car Series gets underway. And just in behind there is Connor Seidel, winner of the GTE class, by a whopping 1 minute and 9 seconds over Leighton Cater now, who is kind of gifted second place here with a late fuel stop by Kevin Hensel. But a great race. Please join us for Barcelona in 2 weeks' time. The race will be held on the 17th of October. Come and join us. Here are the final results. And we'll see you in 2 weeks' time at Barcelona.